Hi, Doc. Shalini.
Hi.
Hi, morning. Bala here. Yeah, how you doing?
Good, good, good.
Good. So, Doc's late, is it?
I guess I don't know. Not, I can't find him
How are
here.
things with you? Everything good?
Yeah. How is Texas?
So, where about? So, you were not affected by this California thing, right? Wildfires and all that?
They're close. They're not yet reached our house, but yes.
Oh, okay. Which part?
I live near Oakland in San Francisco.
Oakland. Okay. Uh-huh.
Are you in San Antonio?
Yeah. I'm in San Antonio. Yeah.
Perfect place, beautiful place.
Yeah, I mean, peaceful, like zero taxes. That's the main thing.
I know, of course. Yes. And it's chill and relaxed, and it's not expensive at all. So.
Yeah, that's true.
I know.
And also weather-wise, it's the same 28-degree north parallel like Delhi, so very close.
Yeah. Okay. Doc's here.
Okay, Doc's here.
Doc,
I'm
go.
here.
Hi, Doc.
Okay. Morning.
Morning.
How are you guys?
Good.
Excellent. Let me start sharing if you want to go on mute. Okay, so this is a little trip down memory lane of my hiking trips that I have done so far. All of this started around the 2011, 2012 timeframe. That is not the first time I had hiked. I had done so way back in college and somehow stopped after getting married, getting into work and everything else. Life just happened. And somewhere in 2011, I got the bite to get back into hiking again. Part of it was driven by the fact that there were a number of people in the locality who were hiking, friends of mine who we got together and started hiking. And it was also a kind of a nice time in my life because 2011, my daughter had graduated. And in 2010, end of 2010, 2011, the company I was working with had been acquired, so we didn't have to face the day-to-day issues. So it seemed like a good time to start hiking in 2011. And then over the next few years, we've done a number of hikes. So I'll share with you some of them.
Doc, can you just tune up the volume a little bit?
I don't know. I can tune up the volume. I think you have to. Are you saying
oh,
my
you're
mic?
at the max level? Okay.
I can increase the level of my mic if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a control exists.
Nick, mute your audio. That'll help.
Mute my audio. Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we are done.
Okay, we're good. Fine. So what does a hike do? What does it do? And I just kind of left these two things that most people know, and you can read it. So the hikes that we did have been all over the place. And I thought I'll give you a quick perspective on those and then continue on that. The very first one we did in September 2012 was Valley of Flowers in Hemkund Sahib. This is in Uttarakhand. That's the one that we did. The next one that we did was all the way in South America, in Patagonia, Chile, the Torres del Paine. That's what we did in December of 2013. Beautiful place to get to Patagonia. And then in 2015, September 14, we kind of skipped 2015, September, we went to Machu Picchu, which most people know about, and the sister city to Machu Picchu in the same general area called Choquequirao, much less explored. So that's a place we went to in September 2015. We did Machu Picchu too. And then we decided to kind of set our sights a little higher. And in 2017, February, we went to Kilimanjaro, the mountain in Tanzania. And then back to Asia and close to India, Everest Base Camp in April of 2018. And then the most recent one is in 2019, September, when we did the Tour de Mont Blanc. So I'll walk you through some of these, share some pictures, give you my perspectives on them, and we'll go from there. So each of these hikes is, although they're all hikes, they're very different. They're in different parts of the world, and they vary in duration on how much we did. The longest that we did was when we went to Everest Base Camp. It's a 9-day hike up with about 4 days down. Kilimanjaro is one of those where it's a 5.5-day up, but a very quick, rapid 1.5 days down. And the highest point, 19,000 feet. And the rest of them are spread around. And except for 2 of them, which is Machu Picchu and Kilimanjaro, in the rest of the times we stayed in hotels. They vary in quality and how they are, but they're all hotels. Only in these 2, we stayed in tents all the way through. And with a few of them, we did have porters, both in Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp, to help us out. So we were going to places where there's very little support. So we had a number of porters, and I will share some of those details with you as we go along. And as you'll see that some of them are low altitude. Mont Blanc is just 8,000 feet. Patagonia is just 9,000 feet at the most, whereas the other ones like Kilimanjaro go up to 19,000. Brings its own things. So this is the little wall of fame, just to prove that I actually did all of them. Valley of Flowers on the very first one. And the middle one, Patagonia, was very interesting because my daughter came along also for that trip. She's the only one where I've had somebody come with me. And then Choquequirao, Kilimanjaro, of course, there is a nice picture place right at the top. So you can prove to people that you have done it, 19,000 feet. Everest Base Camp, the tents that you see at the back, yellow ones, are all the campers who are going to actually go to Everest itself. And so when you get to base camp, there's not really much to do. You go there, spend 10 minutes and turn around and come back. And at the back, what you see that is a Khumbu ice fall, the glacier behind us. And the bottom right is a beautiful place that you don't have to hike or do anything. You can take a gondola and go up near Mont Blanc, and where there is a glass bottomed thing that sticks out. So you're standing in the glass, perched up in thousands of feet, and behind you is Mont Blanc. That's a beautiful scenery, and you don't have to do much except to fly in to Geneva and then take this gondola up. The Valley of Flowers itself, just to give you a perspective where it is, it's way in the corner of Uttarakhand. And Valley of Flowers, Hemkund Sahib, is only about 10 miles or so from the Chinese border. And so once you get past this and get past Badrinath, you're really in army control territory. And so you can experience the northernmost or the closest chai dukan to China when you go there and beyond. So that's kind of where we went to. Took a flight to Delhi, then a train to Haridwar. And Haridwar and Rishikesh are amazing places to go, and just in themselves, just to see the place, witness the aarti that happens every evening at the river banks, and just marvel at the river itself. And then we took the bus to Govind Ghat and went from there. So it's a fairly 12-13 hour bus ride from Haridwar to Rishikesh. So before we went to Valley of Flowers, we stopped at a couple of places. That area is teeming with stories from the Mahabharata. So before we hit Valley of Flowers itself, we went to another lake area, Deoria Tal, and then we also went to Tungnath. And Deoria Tal is claimed to be the lake in which Yudhishthira and the Yaksha had their famous Yaksha Prashna, the question and answer session that went around where the Pandavas are there. And then when you go beyond, as you can see here, from Govindghat to Badrinath is not too far. It's a few miles only. And once you get past Badrinath, you also have the story about how the Pandavas continued on their journey and where Draupadi fell and where this happened. And apparently the place where Vedavyas recounted the story of Mahabharata and Ganesha wrote it down and everything else. There are caves, the Vyasa Guha and everything else in Badrinath. So it's a place teeming with history, story relating to mythologies, and a wonderful place. But what we did was to go, or part of it, what we did was a hike. And so these are some pictures. On the right-hand side, you'll see the picture of the Prayags. You see a series of Prayags or conflusions where the Ganges connects up with other tributaries and goes up. The pictures don't do justice at all. This is Rudraprayag. So as you go through, you see a number of Prayags. So part of the journey is, before you get to the hike, is experiencing all of these roads and where you go. And teeming with vegetation on the left-hand side is a couple of hike points, fairly steep hikes. You'll see the people on the bottom and top. And on the left top is the views that you get from some of the places before you even get there. These are not major peaks, but these are amazing peaks that you get right off. And the right-hand side, that cloudy, misty lake that you see is the one, Dioryatal, where the Pandavas was supposed to have fallen and then been rescued. So you get to a wayby point in Govindghat, and from there do the hike. This is the Valley of Flowers itself. We reached there in September, which is probably not a right place to go. June, July would have been much better, given that it would have been pre-monsoon and the flowers would have been much more abundant. We did see a lot of flowers, but not quite in the abundance, because you can see a lot of green. The rains had come in and some of the flowers had dropped. That itself is a valley. But I'll give you a sample of some of the flowers that we did see. They were, because of the outgrowth of green, we couldn't see the expanse of flowers as you normally see in some of the pictures. But we saw these flowers, amazing variety of flowers that you get to see, even more varieties of flowers. And that was something. Throughout the journey and everywhere that you see, on the left-hand side, you see various portions of the Ganges gurgling around from the mountains and joining in. And eventually, by the time it gets to Haridwar, it's a quarter-mile across, a huge expanse of water, fast-rushing water. And those of us from Calcutta, if you had gone to Hooghly, you would have seen the same water, except that it's now half a mile or more across and more placid and running quietly. These are just fresh waters coming from the mountains. And on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the glaciers themselves, the same waters. As we went up to Hemkund Sahib, you'll see that they have turned into glaciers as you get a little 2,000 to 3,000 more higher in altitude. This is the Hemkund Sahib. Hemkund Sahib is actually a Gurudwara. It's a working, operating Gurudwara and a place of pilgrimage for the Sikhs. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the glacier pond. If you go further away from this bank, it's much more clearer. But this is a place where at 14,000 feet, ice melt water, very cold, but it's just amazing for everybody to have a dip there. And people collect water from there, as you can see the person in the jug, take it back for those people who couldn't come there. And I think among the Sikhs, it's an important place to go to. And at the end of 14,000 feet, you get there, take a dip and everything else, and you're fed with amazing food at the Gurudwara. It's a hot soup, dal, and something else to eat, but they constantly keep making it. And there is no real hot water running, and the devotees out there do a wonderful job of just, in that cold, cleaning up the vessels, giving you warm food, and taking care of that. On the right-hand side, you'll see the Gurudwara itself. Fairly nondescript. It's not a very massive structure or so. But once you go inside, amazing feeling, just a lot of blankets. You can go sit down there, rest for a while, and then head back down. So that's what we did there. Now, for me, this was a very intimate journey, because I had planned to do the same Valley of Flowers in Hemkund Sahib 30 years back. And when I was in Kanpur and we were doing hikes, Hemkund Sahib, this was one of the hikes that I wanted to do. And without the internet and everything else, I'd gone to the local tourist office in Kanpur and Lucknow and hand transcribed the same map that I showed you of the locations, distances between things, and so on. Because they would not hand out paper maps. They would just say, here is a map that's available on the screen. You can copy it down if you want. And I still had that with me. So it was a very emotional journey for me to go back there. And as fate would have it, the reason I couldn't do when I was in there was I had an appendix removed. I had an appendectomy in '82. And in 2011, when we first started planning to do this, I went back and had a gallbladder surgery. And I was thinking to myself, am I jinxed? And that I can never get to this place. And then finally in 2012, we did it. But the jinx was still there. On the very first day of my hike, before we even got to Valley of Flowers, I twisted my ankle and hobbled around. And for some portions of going to Hemkund Sahib, I had to use a horse. And for whatever reason, that was also the journey where I fell badly ill. Some food did not agree with me. And by the time we hit Badrinath, I was in a raging fever. And but for what it's worth, I still managed to do Badrinath and come back. So it was the first trip that I did in this with this group, and the person you see in front of the Gurudwara is the guy who organized it, a neighbor here and a senior of mine from Kanpur. And it was a moment for reflection. Should I be doing this hike? Something telling me I should not do it. And but I said, nevertheless, I'm going to go again. So come December of 2013, we decided to go to Patagonia. This is all the way south. And I put this map here to show you that it's at 50 odd degrees south, which is about as south as you can get and still have roads and humanity there. And it's only a short few distance from Ushuaia. And Ushuaia is a jump off point for boats heading up to Antarctica. So that's at the very end, you can see close to Falklands. So it's a long journey. First you go to Santiago, and from there you go to Punta Arenas, which is you see a little south of Porto Natales, then go to Porto Natales and then to the trailhead. So it was a adventurous journey just to get there itself. And this was a troop that was amazing because we were about 40 people, and several of the kids decided to join us. My daughter was one of them, and my other friends' kids also joined them. So there were about 12, 13 of the kids, and the rest of us adults, and they had a fantastic time out there. So this trek is a classic called a W trek, and you go from west to east. So although it shows here the numbers going from 1, 2, 3 in a direction, you essentially start from 6, go up to 8, come down and go to 5, and then go up to 3 and 1. And this is a traditional one in which you carry your bags and somebody transports it from one hotel to another. They call it refugio. You go from one refugio to another, and you walk, and your bags are taken from there. So you carry your day pack and journey there. That's the way you do that. So this is a lot of what you're seeing is glaciers. All the white patches that you're seeing is glaciers. And the Mirador base de Torres, the Torres are the horns, and that's the most significant portion of it. These mountains and all stick up like horns. And you will see on the way there, you're south enough that you start seeing penguins, and you see other animals out there. Very windy, windswept area, but incredibly beautiful. And so I just put some pictures out there. And on the right-hand side top, what you see is one of the refugee sheds that we stayed in. And there is a glass top on that, so you can see the mountain. So you step outside, this is the mountain you're going to see. So it was amazing. Although we never got to spend much time in any of those places, we would leave by around 8:30 in the morning, head out for a walk, reach by 5, enough time to fight for some hot water in the refugios because they were shared bathrooms and a finite amount of hot water that was available. And we were sharing it with other people, not just our group, 40, but more other people that were there. And but it was still fun. And you can see some of the things. The glaciers and the lakes were the amazing part of it. And you had a fair amount of vegetation too. And the middle one tells you one of the things. So we've heard about any trip down the South of America is fraught with a lot of danger. So the early people, before the Panama Canal was built, the ships from the east coast of US and the west coast of US used to go down there. And the biggest thing was the wind and the buffeting. So you'll see most of the vegetation there very low, and anything that is higher, as you see in the middle, is bent so much by the wind, but it's almost leaning in that direction. And even when we were walking, that's one of the things that we found. We were buffeted regularly by winds and sometimes rain, and there was no outcome out of that at all. So it was a fun experience with these are the miradors that I talked about, and Torres, as they call Torres del Paine, and windswept. So every time you see that, you'll see that the snows are getting swept up also with the wind. That's a constant. The wind is a constant everywhere that we see this. It was a 5-day journey, starting from the west and going down to the east, then the W, and then we took the boat and came back. So one other thing that we ended up doing, because we were in December there, we stayed back and celebrated New Year that year in South America, in Chile. And we also managed to go to a couple of other places. This is again a close-up of the Torres. And 3 people at the bottom, those were our guides. Very competent, very efficient guides, very knowledgeable about the area that we were in. And the guy on the left and the guy on the right, they were engaged, they were together. And this middle one joined us in between for a couple of days, but the other 2 were the ones that were there constantly with us. And as the step above shows you, because of the winds and the rain swept, many areas were treacherous when we were walking around. And the kids had some, we would often come to a place where the question would be is this hill going to separate the men from the boys? Because the boys would go up faster and the men would have to trail around slowly. And that was a great experience. This is a little town that we were seeing from, and you can see there the restaurants and everything else. And the bottom right is a winery. So the high point of what we did was, since we were there anyway, we went to a Chilean winery after we had finished the hike, and before the New Year's Eve celebration, picked up some wines and had a great time of New Year celebration there. And Valparaiso is a seaside, wonderful seaside town. I don't have too many pictures from there that I put here, but I wanted to share that with you. So that was our second hike. And I was a lot better prepared when we went on this hike. And it was not a very strenuous one. I think the combination of that, plus having all the kids around, told me that there's no jinx. Go forth, let's do some more hikes. So the third one that we did was Machu Picchu and Choqquequirao. This is in Peru. And so you fly into Lima and then fly to Cusco. Cusco is a very historic town. And that is where the 2 civilizations kind of conflicted, where the Incas were there and the Spanish came in. And the story goes that the Incas decided not to reveal to the Spanish where exactly the Machu Picchu was and where the wealth was. So for a long time, it was hidden and stayed out of sight, although the Spanish did find it and managed to capture a lot of the wealth. And you go through an area which is very holy for these people. They call it a sacred valley. And then we hike up the Inca Trail to go up there. This is a little more closer journey of how you do that. The 2 of them, both Choqquequirao and Machu Picchu, are connected by the Hirabamba River. They're both on the same river. And so they're supposed to be connected, built by the same people, although the history out there is a little murky on how much you can see and how much you can't do about it. This is a picture of Cusco, very flourishing town, beautiful. And you can very clearly see how the Incas laid out the foundation and the Spanish came and leveraged the same foundation and built the churches on top of it. And many places, the place is built as is. It shows you the base foundation. It shows you the new things that have been built on top of it. And now most of them are there. The Incas themselves, the descendants of the Incas, they're still a very proud group of people, and they happily share with you and tell you about the land that they have. The group on the left is a group of people that we went. We were about 20 of us. And the Sacred Valley has similar structures, a lot of focus on the sun, devotion to the sun, making sure the sun comes in. So you'll see a half-built area on the top left, and most of the place is very hilly, and you can see that the bottom is the irrigation structure that they have there, and of course the llamas. And so we went through the Sacred Valley up to Machu Picchu itself. And this is an aerial view of Machu Picchu, taken from towards the Sun Gate. And then you can see the layer of the ruins themselves out there. An incredible large layout of ruins and sun temples and everything else built out there, and in a beautiful area. And of course, you can go climb up another mountain near on top of that, and Huayna Picchu, and from there you can have a nice aerial view of how the whole thing is laid out, how they planned the city, everything else. So we left that and continued on with our journey towards Choqquequirao. And so Choqquequirao, essentially the hike is, you start off with some hilltop, go down all the way to the river, and you see the trail in the middle as it leads down, winding down all the way down to the river. And then on the right-hand side, you see the bridge. You cross that bridge and go up the other side all the way up, and that's when you find yourself in Choqquequirao. To give you a perspective, Machu Picchu gets about 2,500 visitors a day. They have throttled it, they limit it, you have to get a permit, and they let only 2,500 people come in every day. In contrast, Choqquequirao, because it's so remote and so inaccessible, gets only about 2,400 visitors a year. So when you're out there, you're really out in the boonies with nobody. You will hardly see anybody else, and you and your team are on your own. Beautiful time to reflect and stay on. And this is the aerial view of Choqquequirao when we got there. There is, again, in most of these places, they build it on a flat area. That's where the land is built. So you have mountains close to it that you can climb up and get an aerial view of how things look. And these hills that they had around them were lookouts to warn them in case somebody was coming in, so that they could defensive action, and incredible structure. So we managed to speak to the guards, whatever there, and there was one area in here called the dining room. And so we had our people with us, and they set up tables in the dining room, and we had a meal there, an amazing meal. So we could pretend like we were from the ancient times and having a meal in their dining hall in one of the rooms that they had there in the stone structures. Excellent food. So I just took some pictures of that. Various vegetables. And so majority of the people in our group are vegetarian. And so each time when we go there, one of the things that we have to ask them is for vegetarian food. And the Chileans managed to find some very exquisite, colorful food every day, every meal. These are all different meals that we had there that we could do. On the right-hand side is a good friend of mine who has been with me on all the 6 hikes. And so we go. So given the size here, I had to break this presentation into 2. And let me continue on. So we finished the 3 hikes. Now we are on to the 4th one that we did, which was in Kilimanjaro, Tanzania. This is right on the border of Tanzania and Kenya. And after the hike, we also did the safari in that region. So today I won't talk much about the safari, but we did that. So it's a great experience to do the safari, amazing. And so we took a flight to Kilimanjaro and a bus to Arusha, and that's where it was. Now, in the map, it's not quite clear, but Kilimanjaro is very close to the equator. It's only 3 degrees south. So you're close to the equator and going up. There are multiple trails to go up to Kilimanjaro. Some people prefer the faster route. Some people prefer the route in which there are fixed installations and huts and shared accommodation. We chose the one which is called the Machame route. And it's critical as to which route you take, because you're going up from about 6,000 feet, which is where you start, no matter which route you take, and going up to over 19,000. So that's a 13,000 feet hike, and you're going to do that in about 4.5 days. And giving yourself time to acclimatize is the most important thing. Anywhere once you go above 11,000, 12,000 feet, you will feel the effects of altitude. You will feel the effects of less air, less oxygen, and that can be some serious consequences. Not just fainting, you could have embolism in the brain, or not embolism. It's more water collection in the brain and have serious effects. So we chose the Machame route, even though there is almost no infrastructure on that route, because it's a more gradual route and offers us the best chances of success. So we were 17 of us who went on that route. And given that there is almost no infrastructure, everything from tables and chairs and tents and food and water and including porta potties had to be carried. So for the group of 17 of us, we had a support staff of 85, a 1-to-5 ratio of support staff. And a part of that is because of the good thing that the Tanzanian government has done, where people used to load up their porters heavily. Now they have a strict limit of 15 kgs per porter. So when you start at the gate, they weigh all your baggage and count how many porters you have to make sure that you're carrying enough porters with you and you're paying them accordingly. So it's a good thing that the government has done. So we took the Machame route and turned out to be good because all 17 of us did the summit. Usually not 100% success with many groups, but we did that and went about the day. So these are the 5 points. You go on Machame route, you go to the camp, Shira camp, and Barranco camp, and then Barafu, which is a close point just before that. And then you do because 19,000 feet is very difficult to stay in, you stay at Barafu camp and try to do the last 4,000 feet or so on one day, 4,500 feet. So at that altitude, 4,500 feet is really the most killer approach that you have. So you'll see here as we go up and down, and you'll see the way down is just a day and a half. You start at the Uhuru Peak, the locals call it Uhuru Kilimanjaro Peak, and head straight down to 6,000 feet in a rapid descent. So you go up slowly and come back down. That is our group. And on the left-hand side picture that you see, right behind you is Kilimanjaro. That is a peak. A unique feature of Kilimanjaro is that it's a standalone mountain. It goes up to 19,000 feet, and we are at 3,000 feet at this point in time. And all 16,000 feet of it is one single mountain. It's not a range. There is not multiple things around it. The only thing they have is a mountain next to it, much smaller than that, called Meru. And next to that is Kilimanjaro. So you can see it all the time. This is quite different from when I talk about the next hike that we have. So you can see it all the time. And because it's a freestanding peak, when you go up there, there's very little to look around because whatever you see is in front of you. So the peak is all that you see. There is no other neighboring peak, no other range to look at, nothing else to see. You also get a bunch of vegetation. You start at the bottom in a rainforest at 3,000, 4,000 feet and very quickly pass up above the tree line. And then you are, as you see on the right-hand side, in a completely arid environment. The tents that you see and the dining table tent, so to speak, these were all carried by people. Nothing, no fixed infrastructure. So when we leave the land, you'll just see it's a barren piece of flat earth. And then when people come in, they put the camp, they clean up everything and leave after that. So it's an incredible thing. So here's the rainforest part of it when we are walking, very green and lush. And then you start getting into the complete arid areas once you get above the tree line. On the left-hand side top is Kilimanjaro, the peak. When we are there about a day and a half before that. And we're going to circle around and enter it, climb it from the other side where you can see this particular peak. So here we are. We start the last ascent at midnight at 1 o'clock or so, because you want to get to the top by around 7, 8 o'clock. Some of us manage only by 9. And you want to descend after that. So you're going to go from about 14,000 feet to 19,000 and come down all the way to about 7,000 feet. So there's a lot of climbing. So you start as a long day. You start around midnight and go up. So one of the things we have done in our hikes, both this and the next one where I have planned it, I tried to go there around full moon day. And so that you get the benefit of climbing at night or being out at night, you get the full moon there and the stars. It's just an amazing feeling to look up into the sky. So you'll see the bottom two are when we start our hike, the moon is up there and we're using our headlamps to climb up. And on the right and the bottom top are as the sun comes up. You're up there and you can see the sun coming up around 6 o'clock. and you can see the sun as it goes up. And on the left-hand side top, you'll see a very grainy, sandy thing that's called a scree. And coming down, you basically almost plow your way through the scree, almost like skiing, except that you're just going down. Your foot goes on each time when you put your foot down. It's not the hard rock anymore, but this is just the powdery side, and it's easier to come down. You come down very fast and get to your destination. And the bottom shows the troop of people that were supporting us. The amazing crowd of people. With all of this, they put up a dance song when we finished it. And they really take pride in people coming in and traveling through that. So on the right-hand side, you'll see that they all give you formal certificates to certify that you have gone up to Kilimanjaro. And the guy who's giving me a certificate, he was a leader of troop who took us, held in much respect among the remaining guides. They call him commander. They don't even give him by name. They call him commander because he's done it about 250, 300 times. He has gone up Kilimanjaro. That's his thing. So we did that. Now, with that under our belt, we felt a lot more confident. And we said we need to go somewhere. And the next one was to Kathmandu and Everest Base Camp. So we flew into Kathmandu, took a chopper to Lukla, and started our hike. And similar to the other one that you see here, you start at Lukla, and which is around 9,000 feet. We fly into 9,000 feet. And then we gradually climb up. In this particular case, in Everest Base Camp, you don't have the option of just doing a rapid climb and coming down. You have to go slowly. So which is why it takes us 9 days. You'll see each day we are climbing about 3,000 feet or so. And in many cases, we climb above, when we climb 3,000, 4,000, we stay there. So Namche Bazaar, we spent an extra day acclimatizing. We just go up and come back down to Namche Bazaar because you want to get your body acclimatized to do that. And we did the same thing after we get to Dingboche. We did a climb and came back and stopped there. And then we go up all the way to Everest Base Camp. This is the kind of hike journey, as you can see it, same as what we did there. On the return, we decided to do a chopper. There's 6 of us only. It's a small group this time. And on the return back, we decided to do a chopper, avoid the 3 days of downward journey. We said we were there, and most of us felt we couldn't take the time off to spend so much time. So we set the 9 days up and then quickly take a chopper, head back there. The path along the way is all through villages, different villages. There are people habitating there. And most of the way along when we walk, you'll find yaks going there. You'll find porters carrying other stuff there. Their entire life depends upon walking up and down. So they carry the stuff that they need for building homes, they carry it up. The stuff they need for doing any kind of repairs on it, they carry it up. And it's a very devoted location. So you'll see the prayer wheels in the middle. You will see the little temple that they have on the right. And often when you go through the villages everywhere, you'll see this one of those temples, the prayer wheels, and some cases monasteries. So you're passing through their habitation, their life, how they go about it, and you're walking through that. The journey itself at the bottom when you're there is very colorful. The range, even up to about 9,000, 10,000 feet, the vegetation has managed to find a way to live there. Flowers blooming there in the April timeframe. And the left-hand side shows you the kind of height we come up from. We came from the valley up here. And there are a number of precarious bridges that have been built. On the right-hand side, you see the bridge. The bottom one was the original bridge, and the top one is the second bridge that has been built. They call it the Tenzing Bridge. And you climb up that and cross a number of places that you go to. So Everest is a very, very peculiar and tricky mountain in that for a long time, nobody even knew that Everest existed. It was only in the 20th century that even people be aware of Everest because it's tucked away behind other mountains. And unless you have the right equipment and you're looking around, you will almost miss it. And because it's behind other mountains and at a distance, it's not easy to determine that it's actually the tallest mountain, tallest peak in the world. So right here you see Everest, which is probably seen better from distance from there. This we are seeing from Namche Bazaar. We were at Namche Bazaar in a lookout point, and from there you get a wonderful view of the peak. It was a clear day. So I got a nice shot of Everest came. So Everest is constantly trying to play hide and seek with you, so to speak. Every time you turn around, you'll see hidden behind one peak, hidden behind other peak. And of course, the cloud layer also makes it more difficult to see that. And throughout the way, you see the melt from the mountain coming up. So more or less, you're wandering, finding your path, following the river and going up, as you can see here. And this is the view of Everest. On the left-hand side top is when we were not at base camp, but we were actually across from base camp in a place called Kalapattar. And you see a better view of Everest from Kalapattar. You don't see it from base camp itself, the picture that we showed. This is as the sun was rising. We left again at 3:30 in the morning to climb up Kalapattar. And on the bottom side, you'll see the moon up there. Again, our goal of trying to be there on the full moon, so we get some moonlit things to walk on. And this is the couple of us in Kalapattar. And this is really the money shot. The picture doesn't do justice at all. But when the sun comes up, and that's Everest in the middle peak, not the right-hand top one, the middle peak is the one is Everest. And as the sun comes up there, you get this wonderful golden hue of the mountain as it comes up. Makes for a very amazing and mesmerizing look when you're standing there, of course, freezing in temperatures at 18 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature we're freezing off. And so even our cameras were having difficulty taking pictures because it was cold. We had to keep sticking it into our pocket, pulling it out and taking the pictures. That's an amazing, incredible feeling of both awe and humility when you stand in front of that, when you look at nature and what is going on there. So I'll come back to check on other things there. Here is the last one that we did, our most recent one that we did here, Tour de Mont Blanc. This is in the intersection of Switzerland, France, and Italy. And so close to, start from a place called Chamonix. So the closest one is Geneva. You fly into Geneva and take a bus shuttle to Chamonix and start the hike. So the hike itself is not to the mountain, it is around the mountain. And you can choose how much you want to do. What we did was a 6-day hike, which meant that we would go up a mountain, come back and get to the trailhead, and we would have transportation carrying us from the trailhead to the hotel and back from the hotel to the next trailhead the next morning. So we kind of avoided some of the walks. And so we did this in about 6 days. You start from Chamonix on the left, and you can do both clockwise and anti-clockwise. We did the anti-clockwise route, which is a more preferred route. Most people do that. And each of those stops indicates where you're going from. So you start from France and you work your way to Italy, and in Courmayeur you're in Italy. And then you go up anti-clockwise again to go to Switzerland and back into Chamonix. That's a trip that we did. And the first day, of course, when you're in Chamonix, you have a chance to go up to this place called the Aiguille du Midi, which is an incredible engineering feat where they have a series of gondolas that take you right across to Mont Blanc. So what you see behind me there is Mont Blanc. And we are standing maybe about 500 feet or so below that in one of the next mountains next to it. And from there, you can get an incredible view of the mountain and you can see it. And they have this glass cantilevered structure where you can go stand. You're virtually hanging in the air, and they don't even let you wear your shoes. So that's why you'll see me wearing those special shoes that they gave us and had us walk into it. So we go there, and from the next day, we started the hike itself. And one of the prettiest places on earth that you can be in. We were there in the right time, and every part of it, the meadows, the cows, the bells, all the things that we've heard of with Maria singing in Sound of Music, the sleigh bells and snow bells, all of those wonderful bells that you hear there from the cows was a very beautiful area. But each day the hike was essentially you start from one village, climb a mountain, come down, and reach the other point.
Yeah, doc.
Sorry, you were saying something?
No. Shalini had to leave, so but she's left some questions to you.
Okay, fine. I'll answer that.
Yeah.
So this is some shots of how our region was with the sheep and little posters for drinking that they have. This is a couple of interesting pictures. We are crossing the country line here, and the country line runs along the ridge of the mountain. And you'll see here on my left is France, on my right is Italy. And this was my attempt at coming back and saying my heart is still in France and my stomach is in Italy. And obviously the next one is where on my left is Italy and on my right is Switzerland. So I stuck my watch there just to say my stomach is still in Italy. So these are the two borders, very easy borders. When you see those little things that you see there, that's what the country border is on the ridge of the mountain. So we are crossing that. Here are some more shots of the mountain and the things. Very peaceful and nice and wonderful thing. Here is a incredible picture that we got. We were staying in a hotel right by the lake, and this was something that we saw at night, an evening picture, and exactly the same thing with the sun behind us. So it was right at the sunset. The very same place. The next day we got it at sunrise. The sun was coming up behind those mountains, and as we got it, we got a picture of that. So very beautiful location. So that's the close of my thing. Couple of quick thoughts on how do you compare the hikes. So one is, if you want to look for a sense of accomplishment and natural beauty and experience, if you kind of put that there. Kilimanjaro is clearly a sense of accomplishment because it is the tallest mountain out there. You are on the top of Africa. There is nothing else close to it. And you feel like I have reached the top. And it's an incredible sense of accomplishment. But from a natural beauty and experience, I think EBC and Mont Blanc are way out there. Much, much beautiful. And the dark color indicates a level of difficulty that's there. Kilimanjaro is a difficult one to do, and so is EBC. The rest one are relatively easier because you don't have that altitude problem to deal with. In terms of natural beauty, I think EBC, Mont Blanc, quite incomparable with anything else that you may find there. Although Everest Base Camp is just about 500 to 800 feet less than Kilimanjaro, less 1,000 feet, about the same height. The sense of accomplishment that you have is also masked by the fact that you reach there and you think that's your destination. And for people who are going up to Everest, that's a starting point. So you feel like I've reached something, but then you look at other people and say, they're just starting from here. So you have the sense of accomplishment is a little subdued because of that. But Kilimanjaro is a wonderful thing from that perspective. The other thing was, how do you find the guides and what they do about it? The people that we found at Chile were very efficient, very competent guides, very skilled. They knew what they were doing. They were carrying health facilities with us. I mean, they were carrying first aid kits with them and everything else. So very accomplished. But when you look at the empathy, the guys at Kilimanjaro, they really want you to succeed. They will cheer you up, they will cajole you, and if necessary, towards the last mountain, many of them will put their hand around you and literally carry you up. Not fully, but literally push you up and carry you because they want you to succeed. They really make it happen. At the end of which, there's a song and a dance, and they clap for you and really make you feel like you've accomplished something. The empathy of the guides is phenomenal when you go up there. The European guides probably are the worst in this. They really don't care whether you do it or don't do it. If you say, I don't want to do it, I'm feeling lazy, can I just take the shuttle and go to the next hotel? They're like, yeah, sure. They really don't care about it at all. And the rest of them, the EBC people will help you. They will all help you if required, but I think they really don't care whether you accomplish your mission or not. If some people decide they want to stop a little early, they'll be like, fine, you can stop. So for example, when we went up Kalapatar, when some of us said it's too cold in the morning, they were like, sure, let's not go up then. They're easy to give up. So you have to make sure that you're pushing yourself up and going there and not depending upon them. So that's one thing is something to take away. Skill level doesn't necessarily equate empathy. and the willingness and desire to make you do something. So that's it. So let's take some questions.
Doc, one
Yeah.
question I have is, which are the places where you had to, use oxygen?
So we didn't have to use oxygen anywhere at all.
Oh, you didn't have
Meaning
to carry, okay.
we never had to use bottles of oxygen or anything anywhere. In Kilimanjaro, we carried bottles of oxygen, and the guides had it.
Okay.
And as an extra precaution, I had asked them to carry a GABA bag also.
Okay.
It's essentially a chamber. It's a bag-like thing. You put a person inside it and put them into the pressure and so on.
Okay.
Just because we were not sure about it. That's the first high altitude one we were doing, and we were not sure. We carried it with us for an extra price, but we never had to use oxygen.
Okay.
I think one or two people felt pukey when they reached the top, and they had to be quickly brought down, but they never had to be really given oxygen, but it was there. Other people in Kilimanjaro have had to use it.
But since you guys took the gradual route, probably that also helped, yeah?
Correct.
In
Correct.
acclimatization.
Correct.
Okay.
The gradual route, and then we walked slowly. Yeah.
And in EBC, what was the highest altitude throughout the trek that you hit?
The EBC, the highest altitude that we did was 18,800 or so. That is Kalapathar. And about 18,000 is where EBC itself is.
Okay,
so
and
just
there
about
also you didn't have to use oxygen at all, extra?
No oxygen required. Again, keep in mind, acclimatization does a huge thing for you.
Right.
And in EBC, we took 6-7 days in acclimatizing. We stopped in Namche Bazaar, and we stopped elsewhere for a day, which means we reached Namche Bazaar, then we went up and came back to Namche Bazaar.
Okay.
So there is a lot of techniques to be done in terms of acclimatization. So because we did that, I think that was a key there.
No, excellent, Doc. I think, thanks a lot for all the pictures, a lot of useful information. Of course, Valley of Flowers I have done, Machu Picchu I have done, but not as a trek. But other places, brilliant, right? Terrific. Yeah. So in terms of your own personal favorite out of these is which one?
My personal favorite, I think EBC was the amazing one.
EBC.
Okay. EBC was the one amazing thing that I would do. And so if you kind of ask my perspective on it, what did I learn from the hikes?
Right.
Here's kind of my 5 things that I kind of took away from it. For me, hiking has become a little bit more than just a hike. First is, each hike is your own personal journey.
Right.
That's a way to look at it, and not look at it as anything else. It's you take away from it whatever you did. As John Muir said, right? You get from it a lot more than you anticipate, but it's really your journey. The second is, somebody can carry your bag, somebody can pitch your tents, everything else. But the hiking itself, you just have to do it yourself. There is nothing else you can do. It doesn't matter whether you are rich, poor, educated, not educated, whatever you are. Out there, you have to walk and you have to carry yourself. It's a simple thing. And that, when you do it for days on end, it's an amazing feeling of letting go of all your assumptions about life. And the other one is that if you think about it, hiking requires no skill, nothing that you need to accomplish. It is just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and repeating that for hours on a day and days and together. It's just a repetitive thing that you have to do. And when your body does that repetitive thing, you can get to be very meditative and calming. You can get to the point of no thoughts. So you kind of walk for 3 hours on your own, and you suddenly look back and say, what was I thinking? And they were like, no, there were no thoughts. First day, you're still thinking about the things that you need to do, checklists of things that you need to get back and do. By the second, third day, you are really no thoughts, because you don't get regular supply of newspapers, television, nothing else that you do. And so it gets to the point of being very thoughts. And the last thing that I found was, given that after we did the Valley of Flowers, there was a big flood and took away the village that where we had stayed at previously. And given how I've seen the weather change and everything else, nature is far, far in a different position than you ever can think about. So when I climb a mountain or go on the hike or reach some point, I don't look at it as an achievement. I almost look like I've been permitted, I've been allowed to go there. So when I go up EBC, I look at it and say, thank you for letting me climb, because you could have a landslide, you could have anything happen there and prevent you from doing it.
Absolutely.
And so you look at it and say, this is just a way to overcome your own internal limitations. And
Right. So
you've been allowed to do that.
which means that graph where you got sense of accomplishment should be changed to sense of humility.
Completely. That's what I said. Again, when I said the sense of accomplishment, I said you can feel a sense of accomplishment because you've reached the highest point in Kilimanjaro, in Africa. So you can kind of say there's nothing else bigger than higher than this at this point.
Higher than this to climb. No, absolutely.
But when you go to EBC, I'm saying, which is why there's probably more spirituality in the Himalayas, is you go to EBC and you look around and say, I'm about the same height as what I did in Kilimanjaro. And this is just the starting point for somebody else.
Correct.
So no matter what you do in life, you can always come back and say, I've done this, and look around and somebody else is saying, that's my starting point.
Yeah, fair enough. But
And
what about absence of what we call as connectivity, but somehow you feel more connected to the world around and the cosmic energy and all that kind of feeling you got?
Yes. And the whole spiritual journey and meditation, I think that's a different topic altogether.
Right.
For today, I'm just focusing on the hikes, and if you want to, we can have another on my own spiritual journey. That's a different thing.
Sure, we'll do that. Yeah. Terrific, Doc. Excellent. Thanks a lot. Have a great Sunday. Yep. And I will give you a call a little later in the day, in the evening probably, and give you a heads up on my plan.
Okay.
We're probably coming there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks,
Take care, Doc. Thanks, Dan.
Bye.
Cheers, man. Bye. Yeah,